The Dark Prism.
Chapter 16. The Lullaby of the Leaves. Grace spun the wheel and the car slid into the driveway, kicking up dirt and rocks from the ground as it came to a stop, jarring everyone inside. Maya grabbed the plastic handle just above the windshield as the seatbelt cut into her shoulder, and she let out a quiet umph, and the car came to a stop. "All right, everyone out. Let's go," Grace said, pushing the shifter into P, unclicking her seatbelt and pushing the driver's side door open. James, Eli, and Maya followed her lead, and the four of them walked up the dirt driveway, staring up at the windows above the front deck. The old wooden steps creaked and moaned as they made their way up to the front door. "Hey, look in the window." "Is that a cat?" he said, and they turned their heads just as a dark shape disappeared below the windowsill with a flick of its tail. Grace opened the screen door and knocked on the wooden front door 3 times, the sound echoing through the empty house within. "I don't think anyone is home," Maya said from behind Grace as she leaned over the railing to try and get a glimpse through the window. There was a couch set along the wall in the back with a painting of a rising sun behind it. The lights were out in all the rooms as far as she could see. "Meow, meow, meow," came a voice from behind the door. "Is that the cat?" James asked, leaning into the door and gripping the doorknob for balance. "Watch what you are doing, young man," Grace exclaimed as the door suddenly fell open inwards, with James and Grace stumbling into the room. A cat was suddenly at James's feet, curling itself around his legs and purring. "Well, hello there," he said, trying to step backwards without stepping on its tail. Maya and Eli walked in and glanced around the room. Off to the left was a small kitchen, and past that was a lounge area with records in piles along the walls, a long leather couch with a crimson and brown Japanese-style painting above it, a record player with 2 tall speakers on each side of the record cabinet, and along the right side of the wall was a computer workstation. Maya ran across the room to the record player, and there, sitting on the table to the right, was the record they had been searching for. "Dorothy Donegan Live!" the cover exclaimed. Maya picked it up and turned it over in her hands. She peeled apart the 2 sheaths and looked inside. "No record." "The record isn't in here," she said, looking over at Eli. "Check the player, maybe he was listening to it," he replied and pointed at the record player just off to their right. Maya walked up and carefully lifted the hinged plastic case that covered the platter and tone arm. There, sitting on the spindle of the record's carousel, was a shiny black circle of grooves with a label in the middle that announced Dorothy Donegan Live, with the numerous credits and production companies in tiny lettering below. Maya held her breath and reached out with her hands, moving the record backwards and forwards on the platter. "Hey, what's this?" James asked and walked up to the computer station along the wall. He sat down in the stiff plastic chair and stared at the screen in front of him. There, blinking on the screen, were 4 words. James pressed the space bar. He stared at the screen, looked down at the keyboard, then back up at the screen. He held his breath for a moment and pressed the long space key on the keyboard. The screen came to life in a kaleidoscope of colors, shifting and twisting before going dark, and there was only a blinking cursor in the top left-hand side. A series of characters and numbers shot across the screen, like code writing itself, before the screen went dark again. "Shit," a computer voice said from the small speakers in the monitor. "Ugh, I really hate him." "Bella, is that you?" James asked the blank screen, and a moment later an animation of a cat appeared on the screen. "Yeah, it's me. This is the best I can do right now, and we have a slight problem." "What problem?" James asked. "Well, right now Michael and Nancy are about to get to the center of the control room. Which is great. But they will need the code to the master control to unlock the systems, and right now I can't connect the 2 systems. The only way to connect them is for a player to make it to the center control room in the original game at the same time that they get to the control room in this real world, and then and only then can I sync up the 2 so you can play the code for him in time to stop David. So I've got to beat a video game?" Or at least get to the center control room of the video game. Is that right? I mean, I love video games. How hard can this be? It is a randomly generated puzzle world of elevators and rooms with deadly robots and pitfalls. Noon has ever beaten it legitimately in under 1 hour. And this game was an early hit. Lots of people tried. It's like nothing you've ever played before. And you have 35 minutes to beat it. I tried to hack my way through, but David prevented that. But he can't prevent someone legitimately beating the game. Even he can't break his own physics. James stared at the screen in front of him. Puzzles and games had been his passion, his obsession. But it had always been just that. A game. A distraction. Now it was for real, and he could feel the sweat in his palms and the VR gloves as they floated above the moon. He pulled the chair forward and the keyboard closer. "So how do I start the game?" he asked confidently, his eyes cold and focused. "Use the command prompt and type C run agents Rus mission.exe and hit enter," Bella's voice said from the crackling old speakers on the desktop computer. Agent Zero's mission? "That's the name of the game my dad used to play when he was a kid," he said, staring at the blinking cursor on the screen in front of him. "And in this world it is one of the oldest computer games ever made. Time and reality have blended between our worlds. Pieces have been borrowed, shifted. But this game can connect our two worlds at their cores. It's the only chance we have, and it's why I picked you, James." Bella said, and James looked back at his sister and Elijah for a moment before turning back to the screen. He typed in the command and hit enter, and the screen was filled with the colorful sprites of an 8-bit computer game, the title Agent Zero's Mission flashing on the screen in colors of neon orange and yellow, and below that, in white block text, were the words "Start New Game." He pressed the spacebar and the screen went black. From the speakers a demonic voice beckoned them.
"Another visitor. Stay a while. Stay. Forever."